Now, returning to studio with more on Israel's fifth serial elections, former Blue and White Party Knesset member Michal Cotler Wunch and Gil Hoffman, Executive Director of HonestReporting and former J-Post political analyst. Thank you both so much for staying on the line and rejoining us now. The polls, as we've just heard, tend to band certain parties together, which makes sense given the campaign slogans and the promises from various party heads, not to sit with one side or the other. But as with the fourth election, if every party stuck to these promises, then we wouldn't have a coalition at all. So do you think that we'll have maybe some surprise partnerships, Gil?
See, that's exactly the problem. The politicians can't lie anymore about who they will sit with after the election because there could be another election right around the corner. When candidates run for Senate in the United States, they know they're for 6 years. And any promises that they made, no one will remember them 6 years later. If these politicians are going to an election 6 months later, then they can't afford to lie because they'd be held accountable, like Ayelet Shaked. We need to get back to a place where our politicians can feel free to lie again, to say who they are going to sit before, and then do the opposite. That would be the sign that we're going back to
at the same time, you're talking about Ayelet Shaked, for example, and she apologized for lying, quote unquote, to voters. But at the same time, Bennett maintained for a long time that he would not rule anybody out, and he stuck to that. Michal, similarly, maybe the left and the right-wing blocs aren't so set in stone as they seem. Perhaps, former leader of Blue and White, Gantz, could be a kingmaker, so to speak.
So actually, in defense of, maybe perhaps as a former legislator, in defense of politicians, I actually don't think we need to get back to the place in which they can lie. But I do think we need to get back to the place in which they create coalitions on the merit and on the issues. And in fact, it is through that place that I believe that there is an incredible opportunity and responsibility, and I don't know that it'll happen after these elections at all, because if you actually apply that understanding unequally or inconsistently, meaning if the result of a democratic election indicates, as your polls just showed, and as we'll know by tomorrow, I assume, that 30 mandates or 35 mandates elected Benjamin Netanyahu, and he is democratically the leader of a party that was democratically given the largest majority, then there is no way that without being, sort of a little bit, I'd say, inconsistent with our values, that a government can be formed by only excluding that one person. And literally, it's a personal exclusion. So if we were to vote on the merit and if we were to create coalitions on the merit, it would be an easy coalition where with an overwhelming majority, that's the good news for Israel, with an overwhelming majority of representation to what I called before that majority moderates. When it becomes personalized in the way that it has, and when it becomes the issue that Gil also mentioned, voters are going out to vote on. And I would say actually that the voters far exceed their expectation of their elected representatives, and basically ask over and over again of the elected representatives to figure it out, to just create a stable government. Right. And I hope that we would go back to that.
So Gil, again, similarly, I fall back to Gantz because he's one of the few who I think is in a position to link both the left and the right, as Lapid might have a little bit more trouble, particularly with the Haredi, the ultra-Orthodox parties. Do you agree, or am I way off?
You're off only by 2 months. It could happen in January. If Netanyahu does not get the 61 votes he needs to form a coalition today, then he would probably still, as the leader of the largest bloc with the most recommendations, receive the mandate from President Herzog to form a government and fail. And then Lapid, who is only 3 seats behind in the polls, chances are would still get the second mandate to form a government and would fail. And then we'd be in a place where any member of Knesset would have 3 weeks to form a government, or we go to elections. And that's where Gantz could go to the ultra-Orthodox and say, do you really want Lapid and Lieberman as finance minister, who cut so many of your benefits, remaining in power for another 6 months? Or do you want to let me form a government with unlimited money to the ultra-Orthodox, whether they learn math, English or not, that's how a government could be formed, and that is how Netanyahu could potentially be deposed permanently.
All right. Again, Gil Hoffman, Michal Cotler Wunch, I want to thank you both so much for coming out. Happy voting day, and thank you again. It was a pleasure to interview you both.
Thank you. And just a reminder that everybody should exercise that incredible democratic duty.
Hi everyone, it's Emmanuel Kadosh. I wanted to invite you all to subscribe to ILTV Plus, where you can find our daily news and updates about Israel. And not only that, but live feeds, entertainment, our kosher food show, and so much more. Needless to say, your subscription to ILTV Plus helps us grow and create more content while also supporting the state of Israel. Our app is available on all platforms and devices, so I'll see you guys there.